So Carolyn, we'd like you just to feel free just to talk to us as preachers and teachers. You can talk about stage presence, about movement, about voice, whatever you want to do, okay? She's the theatrical director here at Greater Grace.
Thank you, Pastor. I was thinking of this and, of course, praying about it, and this might seem very mechanical to you, but maybe it's useful, and take what you can from it. So I will speak to you a little bit about vocal production. And, of course, you are pastors and speakers, many of you women, and there is the message that takes precedent, and then there is the man or the woman. And the idea really is that they would mesh together so that in a way the communicator would be out of the way and the message would flow very freely. And that's sort of the idea behind doing any kind of vocal preparation or exercises or even study on that, is that the message would flow. And, you know, we see in the Bible many different speakers and their various problems. For example, Moses, he said right from the beginning, I can speak. And he had a voice impediment. He had halting speech, or he asked for his brother Aaron, please speak for me. I'm not a good speaker. So there was that. Then we have also Jeremiah. In chapter 1, verse 6, he talks many times, I cannot speak, I don't want to be the speaker. But God chose him. And so he had to prepare himself to speak, whether he wanted to or not. He said many times right there in the beginning, I can't speak, I don't want to be the speaker. Then we also think about Ezekiel. God tells him right away, you're going to speak to a rebellious audience. You can't look at their faces. So you can't look for encouragement from your audience. They're going to be rebellious. You have to give the message. And then also we think about Paul. He had a squeaky voice. Well, how did he know that? Someone must have told him, because they didn't have recording devices. So he got a little bit of criticism there somehow. But we heard a lot of messages from him in the Bible, so he kept going. And then I think about Isaiah. He had his lips touched with a hot coal. Couldn't have been too comfortable to speak after that, but he did. So there are 3 elements of voice production. And the first one is breath, and that's your fuel. You have to breathe when you're in the pulpit. It's very important. If you ever find yourself short of breath, stop, pause, take a deep breath, and the audience will breathe with you. It might be a relief for them. Then we have the physical body. That's your physical body. And whatever you think about that, however you prepare yourself, I'm going to speak about that for a little bit. And then we also have the articulators, which is literally your teeth, your lips, and your tongue. So when we speak about breath, you can either take a shallow breath, which is a chest breath, or a catch breath, or you can take a deep breath, which is from your diaphragm. And those are breaths, those deep breaths, when you need to speak a long passage. And very important to know the difference. And like I said, you get short of breath, stop, pause, take a drink. The audience will stay with you. And then I think of the physical body. Now, the physical body, in order to even have anyone talk to you about your speech, about the way you present yourself, you have to be a very humble speaker, because it's personal. The way you choose to dress yourself to be in the pulpit is important. For example, maybe you've gained a little weight. You need to wear shirts that are big enough because it will be an impediment for the audience, really. They'll be wondering, like, what is going on up there? Or the other way, you've lost weight maybe. And people are wondering, why is he wearing clothes that are so big for himself? Is the pastor sick? Now you can tell this takes you right away from the message. So rather than thinking of it as a personal affront, incorporate that, receive it, take what's good, throw out the bad, eat the chicken soup, throw out the bones, because the message is the most important thing. Maybe you record yourself, which is interesting. I have a hard time listening to my own voice when I'm recorded, and maybe you do as well. Now, Pastor Schaller, of course, has no choice. Oftentimes he hears himself in the middle of his office on Grace Hour. There is his voice. It's not so easy to listen to your own voice, but it is a tool if you decide to use it. The other thing that I wanted to say is addressing the whole audience. It's interesting, you can make eye contact with the people you know, and then you get a nod from them, and then you stay with that person. But there's all of these folks. So it's a good idea, just as a general habit, to start to speak to one group, to move on to the next group, to finish with the center, and then so on, using too many hand movements. All of these things can get very technical and draw you away. It's sort of interesting that we can imitate various pastors. It's because they have a tell. There's something that they do. They get ready to speak and they right away roll up their sleeves and start to talk about, or there's one hand movement that continues, It's kind of cute. But there's at no time when you should be aware of this when you're in the pulpit. All of this, what I'm talking about, is in your preparation. Now we're going to talk just a little bit about the articulators, and I'm going to do an exercise with you. Is it okay? All right, everybody up. Come out to the aisles so that you have arm space. You don't want to be hitting anybody with your arms. I'm going to do a few little vocal warm-ups with you, exercises, and it's a good thing that we're doing this in here. It's a little bit chilly. So I don't need the microphone for this. You'll be able to hear me. My shoes are a little bit loud. That's the only reason I'm taking them off. So, just the physical part. Just the physical in the beginning. You're standing with feet apart, and you let your head go forward, to the side, back, and side. And forward, side, back, and side. And roll it around. Being very gentle through the back. You don't have any vertebrae crackling there. Just gentle. We're not exercising so much as warming up. Good. Arms out to the side. Little bitty arm circle forward. Little bitty backward. Medium forward. Medium backward. Large arm circles. Why you need to step up. Large arm circles forward. All the way up and stretch up. And down. Good. Now we're going to work the stretch just for a moment here. Come up onto your toes just a bit and come. Not so much that you are out of balance, but just so that you start to get the breath involved. Let the breath come out. Different pitches, try. Now we're going to warm up the articulation. So with feet, kiss and smile. Really plant one. Big lion face. Croon, raisin, wrinkly and small. Big lion face. Claws, tongue, very good. Prune, reason, and shake it out. Come to your neutral stance once again. Ta-da, 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 ta-da. Beba, 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 Very good. Now, you may never use these. Perfectly fine. What you can do always, as you're on the way to a message, is hum your favorite hymn, your favorite song. Humming is something that massages the vocal cords. Those vocal cords are a muscle. Humming will always help. There's always a tendency in folks to clear your throat. Clearing your throat, just so you know, now probably everybody will do this because you're conscious of it, but it's a little bit of an irritation to the vocal cords. So rather than clearing your throat and you have something in it in the pulpit, much better to just swallow. Again, it's the massaging of the vocal cords. And the other thing I want to say to you is our pastor, Pastor Stephen, and our pastor Sharon uses creativity at all times. We all think this Jack from a million different things. We use two chairs and the personification of those two chairs, 3 chairs. He'll use a person. Have somebody come up and lay down here, which is the first rule of the stage. No dead bodies on stage. You have to have somebody carry them on. But anyway, all different people, he'll call someone's name to engage them in the message. All of those things, very, very useful for you. I hope you found any of this important. If you like any of these exercises, I can give you my email address. I also have some good little recipes for when your throat is really raw. And I'll send them to you if you're interested. But thank you for your attention. It was fun.
Maybe we could ask, was there something that you have noticed that you would like to share with everybody that was like strikingly, like just something that you enjoyed in the ministry? Something about the stage, about the presentation. We also have the use of the iPad. I don't know how many of you are going to have that as a tool, or if you want to have it, or a sketchboard, or some other, But is there something you want to say? Yeah, Pastor Steve. Okay, wait a minute. You want to? What you said is so good. I'm very interested in the eye contact part. Go ahead, here.
Well, I notice when I'm in here and I'm over there that I still feel like you have a contact with me, even though if I'm sitting over there and you're here, I still feel like pretty much. Yeah, I don't feel neglected, really.
I have a problem. I mean, the Spirit does it, so praise God. But I sometimes, I know like I'm looking over here, but I'm actually looking not at a person, but, and then over here, like I never look, or over here at the radical right angle, I don't look, you know. So I want to hear what you said.
I know, like, what's kind of funny is, like, sometimes we're in a really small room where we do our service, and the crazy thing is, like, at the end of service, sometimes I'll say goodbye to somebody, and I'll be like, "Holy God, I don't remember looking at that person during the whole message. Like, what's wrong with me? Like, how could this person be in such a small room?" And I wasn't, like, really, like, you know, I don't remember, like, making contact with that person, and it's like, I think that, you know, sometimes I gotta remember to make eye contact with everybody at least once or twice in the message. Otherwise, it's like I'm kind of blowing it, like, you know, because this person comes to church, and if they feel like I'm ignoring them, like, that's not good. They shouldn't feel like that. They should go home and know that at least I know they were there, and also it gives you a gauge on. You can tell when you look at somebody if they're receiving. Like, you know, people say, well, you don't know me, but when you're in church and you see somebody receiving, you get to know them pretty easily because you see their heart. So it's kind of bad not to do that. Look around and see people. It's better to look around.
What eye contact? Anybody want to? Yep, Brian.
Like, I find that kind of like what Caroline was saying. You just find a couple people in each section, and you can just, so that you're moving. You look over here and you see, and then you pick out a couple people in your mind, and then you just make eye contact with. I think that helps. It helps, you know, because then they might give feedback, especially if they're people you might know or whatever, and I find that helpful. I also wanted to say that whenever, you know, I remember, like, at Eurocon, when you put Pastor Shibley on the stage a couple of years ago and surrounded him by speaker stand, like microphone stands, and he was in prison, and just anytime you use those props, it just really, like, solidifies it, like the message and the illustration. So any of those dramatizations or props that you use are always so helpful. You know.
Do you find it easy to do that? Do you use props? Yeah, maybe it just comes easy for me. I mean, you know, that whole thing. Maybe for somebody else it's not, and that's fine. Yeah, and maybe to plan it out. Let's say if you don't do it spontaneously, but if you want to plan it out ahead of time, and plan out something that you want to use. Like we had the redneck barbecue grill out here last fall. Remember that? With the fence, we had the door. What else? We had the porch. We had different props up there, but those were planned. I asked Scotty Dubé, I'd like to have a fence, so they're in here working on it. So that's pre-planned, but then the spontaneous ones are just with whatever you can grab your hand, put your hands on. Pastor Arto? Actually, I had times when he would look at me and I looked at him and it was awesome. We had a connection. He's like, I see you, I see you. I know what's going on in your heart, I love you. I had those, what? It depends on what he was saying. Depends on what he was preaching about. Yeah, like there's some people going to hell and I'm talking to you, But no, it wasn't that at all. It was so rich, and I love that because he had amazing eye contact. I think he had a beautiful personal ministry to people in his heart, and then it came through those moments when you could feel he cared for you. Okay, Pastor Sam.
My question is, sometimes you look at the people when you mention, you make a statement, and they put like something, and that sometimes can be destructive to you, a preacher. Like, you make a statement like in a message, and people kind of like, you look at their faces like, and so sometimes that is destructive. So how do you go about that? And then on what Pastor Steve was saying, usually I look at people when I come to the stage. That's maybe in the church where and then I can be able to mention either their names and stuff like that. But when I begin to preach, I don't know what happens. I never look at people's faces. I just look, but above them, like.
Okay, all right. Just turn to your neighbor and make an angry face. Go like this to your neighbor, like, okay. Okay, now this is what he said. This is what he said. He said, Pastor Sam said, what happens when I'm preaching and I see somebody look at me like that with an angry face, right? Then you get distracted, like what I said isn't being received. Like now it throws him off. Now he's a little bit, insecure or troubled by it. So he's asking, what do you do about that, Pastor Pete?
What do you do as a preacher?
What would he do, Pastor Sam?
Don't make angry faces.
You would tell them, don't look at me like that. Pastor or Andy? Yeah. So you stay focused on your message. And God said to Ezekiel, don't be afraid of their faces, right? But the question is, why are they looking at you like that? What, they don't receive the message, or they're sick, or they're angry with you for a personal reason, or that would be the question that would come to my mind. But if I don't know them and they're looking at me sternly or in an angry manner, it might be the way they look normally. I don't know. They just look like that. When I saw Niazi in Baku for the first time, I asked Pastor Mati, do you know him? Because he was like, just looking at me, like staring at me, like, is he an undercover terrorist or something? He didn't look too, like he was too happy with me, but he actually was. Pastor Dan?
Humor is one way to diffuse a lot of that humor. I think if we, it's a gift really to be able to interject. You're on a real serious point. You're preaching on sin, and you want to get your point across, and it can get very heavy. And I don't think we want it to be like that, and it's really a gift to be able to bring it into but not the humor to the point where you're just, making light of sin. Maybe I'm using the wrong illustration, but the humor is good.
Yeah, but I mean, if he's preaching and then he sees an angry face, he's not going to stop the message and tell a joke for that guy. Okay. Okay, this raises another question. And I mean, this is when you minister in the congregation, is your congregation right? And you're going to minister to them to encourage them? Or when you approach them, are they wrong and you're going to correct them? Which one? For first one. Some of both, okay? I always think the congregation is right. I do. I mean, this congregation. I guess I need to know the congregation. But generally, they're right. They have the Spirit. They come to the church by faith. It says, we have the mind of Christ. They have the mind of Christ. So I'm going to edify them and reveal the Word. So a man may have the idea, a pastor or a visiting pastor, he might say, I'm going to go there and get those people straightened out. They don't do any soul winning. They don't have any prayer meetings. They don't have, they don't know the finished work. And I'm going to approach them that way and get them straightened out. But you can't think like that. You think the other way. These are God's people, and I just feed them. You just feed them. You lead them. And maybe somebody is angry, but I don't know why. Maybe later I will find out. But they're not going to affect me in my ministry or my message because they are not the ones that have spent time in preparation. And they're not there for me to react to their situation. They're there for me to feed them. And Moses said, my doctrine distills as the dew from the air. Deuteronomy 32. Okay, yes.
Yeah, well, like on Wednesday night, it was actually very edifying for me as a speaker when you when you really commended the congregation and said, like, well, I just love to be here with you, and you mentioned something about sleeping well at night because, and I think that, I mean I was just getting ready to, I think it was when you were going to introduce me, and that was very edifying for me for you to speak that way about them, and it made it much easier for me to even address them, and to address them that way, like, yeah, I think even when someone comes. Even if someone comes in late, sometimes in Peru, someone will come late because many times for especially the midweek services and the classes, they may be working all day and they come in late, and there's always a few people in the congregation that are like sort of looking at them like, like we were here on time. And sometimes I stop and I say like, wow, I'm just, this is so good that I mean everybody saw them come in, but I actually say like, wow, thank you so much for coming after working all day and then taking a bus an hour and a half across town and being here. It's amazing that you're right, that they are right. They came to church. These are not the ones that are avoiding church. These are the ones that came to church.
One more. We're taking a break after Tim.
God had a message for Jeremiah. He said, don't be afraid of their faces. Right? Don't be afraid of their faces. And I was also thinking about, what about the congregation? What if your pastor is Jonah?
You mean he runs away?
He was giving them the message that God is going to destroy you, and I'm
Yeah, if your pastor was like Jonah and he in his heart wants you to be destroyed, then he's not a good pastor. Because John 10, the shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. And also, this is a good point about anger. Like, anger is not good in the ministry in terms of reaction. I'm angry with the people. I don't like them. You know, I don't like them. I'm angry with them. They disturb me. And this is not ministry. You know, this is just, it's upside down. But when somebody's not to be there, they can go. And that's okay. And you might say in your heart, I'm glad they're gone. In your heart, you might say, because they need to change their attitude. And that's another part about, people leaving, and that can be God's will. I can't think of anybody that I'm happy that they are gone, because I don't think like that, because agape love doesn't think in those terms. But there is a part of my mindset where I realize it isn't God's will for everybody to be in this church. They should be in other churches. It isn't God's will that everybody would be here. They have another thing that God is having them do. But I'm very happy with the people that are here, and I believe in what we're giving them, and they need it. It'll help them and change them. Okay, we'll take our break, and then we'll see you in the classroom.